All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here. My name is Jim Dickinson. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Career Services here at Loyola. Also a proud 2001 alum as a psychology major and writing minor, and really has been an honor and very exciting to be back at Loyola as a professional for the past 3 years. I want to welcome you all to our Ready for Anything panel discussion tonight. I want to start off just a brief introduction and some context. So how many of you all, by show of hands, have seen the new banners around campus recently with the More Than Ready, Loyola Ready? Okay, if you've walked across campus, likely that you've seen them. So this is a part of Loyola's renewed brand. We've refreshed the brand of the university. And as I've learned about the process of doing that, there was a quote that I heard, or a saying, that talks about how a brand describes your promise, you know, the promise that an organization makes. But a good brand is that promise fulfilled. I think that's a really powerful statement. And tonight, we have 5 really great examples of that promise fulfilled on stage. 6 if you include me, but tonight's not about me, it's about you. On our panel, we've got a group of young alumni who are experienced in areas including entrepreneurship, global corporate communications, housing and urban development, wealth management, public health, and that's just starters of some of the things that you've been involved with since graduating. And you come from an incredibly diverse set of majors and different experiences as Loyola students. And while I'm sure that we'll learn about a lot of common threads among your experiences for tonight, one thing that we know for sure up front is that you are all products of Loyola's broad Jesuit liberal arts education. And so tonight's event is designed to go to the heart of how that experience has made our panelists ready for anything and everything in their early career journeys. So I would ask you all, as you're here listening in on tonight's event for our students, that you open your mind to the journey that you are about to embark on in your own career, and think about how you can leverage your own Loyola experience in a similar way to how our panelists have, but in a way that is uniquely you. And after our panel, we're going to have a really great exercise that's going to allow you to explore some of the possibilities for what that might look like for your own life and your own career. So with that, I want to introduce our panel, and to kick off, I'm going to ask you, just starting with Jackie, immediately to my left, to introduce yourself with your name, your major from when you were here at Loyola, and your current career with just 2 or 3 sentences about what you do today. Jackie.
Great. Hello. Okay. Hey, everyone. I know it's 4:30 and it's Tuesday. Were you guys off yesterday? No, okay. Well, I was off, so I put a lot of energy into the first half of the day, but I'm excited to be here with you. So my name's Jackie Albright. I am a double hound, I don't know, someone told me that recently. And I did my undergrad was from the business school with a concentration in management, and then my MBA, class of 2012, and my MBA, I graduated in 2018 with a focus in information systems. Currently, I am the operations lead here in Baltimore for Lyft, and just want to share our mission with everyone because I don't think we talk about it enough as an organization, which is to improve people's lives with the world's best transportation. I'm really excited because I'm sitting here next to Valerie, who I think she has a note here about how she's involved with Lyft, so I'm going to save that for her. But my role is really local operations, working with our drivers. I manage a team of really energetic people that are working firsthand to solve any and all driver issues, concerns, and we're really here to help build a community. So anything to do with like Lyft and Baltimore, those are my things I focus on a day-to-day basis.
All Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm Valerie Crosby. I graduated from Loyola back in 2008, and obtained my bachelor's degree in psychology and Spanish language, culture, and civilization. So with that, I was able to study abroad, and that opened up so many different opportunities for me. Primarily with all the roles that I've had a career within healthcare, social work, that type of field, just really helping people with all types of needs that they have, whether it's trying to get access to see their doctors, whether they need transportation, assistance with managing their medication, or housing, an array of different needs. But with all of that, I've always been able to manage Spanish, and having that as being bilingual, having that be a part of my employment. So everything I've done, I've always done bilingually. But since I've been in healthcare for about 10 years, I decided to look at life a little bit differently, look at some other roles and skills that I have. So I'm starting a career in real estate. I actually just took the first part of my test this morning, so thankfully I got a 97 on that, so I'm waiting to take the second part with the state. So hopefully very soon I'll be embarking on a new career, but I still feel like the skills that I've gained at Loyola are helping me with this transition from where I was for the last 10 years and hopefully the new future I'm looking forward to. So I'll share more about that later. Oh, and just really quickly though, as Jackie mentioned, I am part of the Driver Advisory Council for Lyft. I started driving for Lyft back in October because as a little transition while I'm looking into starting my real estate career and finishing up with some other projects. So is another way that I started getting an income stream, but it's been wonderful meeting other drivers, developing this community, and being part of that process too.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kellyanne Bondalich, and I graduated class of 2015. And I had a major in psychology and a minor in marketing. I currently am a global campaign manager at Under Armour with a concentration in our innovation department. And so basically, I work hand in hand with our product developers and people much, much smarter and more technical than I to help translate their hard work and years of research straight into our marketing campaigns and also just our PR of getting out that we have all these brand new things coming down the line and taking their very smart technical things and making normal people like me understand them, which can be very challenging because people, you learn, and it's actually something I learned here, is people who have different strengths in different areas, they communicate and their brains think differently, and it's really trying to mesh those worlds together to make it successful going forward. And so that's pretty much where I live, in between different groups of people at Under Armour, making it all towards one mission, one value going forward. So, oh, you got one.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emma Moynihan. I graduated from Loyola in 2012. I was a history major and a philosophy minor. I'm currently a PhD student at Johns Hopkins University in the Department of Environmental Health and Department of Environmental Health and Engineering. I study environmental epidemiology, which essentially is studying the ways in which everything in our environment except our genes impact human health. And I kind of think the best way to explain what an epidemiologist does is by an example. So has everyone heard of the coronavirus? Okay, so like a microbiologist will study how the virus grows and its characteristics, whereas a physician, when you get sick, they'll treat you, it'll help you feel better. An epidemiologist uses math and biology to understand how the disease is spreading, who's being affected, and what treatment options are the most successful.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Cool. My name is Tyler Joyner. I am a part of the class of 2016. I majored in global studies with a double minor in Chinese and Asian studies, and I stayed for one more year as a part of the class of 2017 through the ELMBA program. What I do now, I work with wealth management operations at Morgan Stanley, downtown Fells Point. My day-to-day is basically creating reports, so I love to organize data. So trying to figure out, what's going well, what's not going well, what I can do to try to fix it. And the biggest part of my day is trying to eliminate any type of risk. So wealth management operations, trying to figure out, when our trades are going to settle, is there any issues going on? So if there's a quantity adjustment, account adjustment, things of that nature, I fix it. I make sure it settles on the time it needs to settle.
Great. All right, so Tyler, keep that microphone. I'm going to go to you with our first question. So when you think back on your college career, when during that journey did you start seriously thinking about careers, and what actions did you take around that time?
I would say towards my junior year, when I started thinking seriously about any type of career I wanted to pursue moving forward. I think for me, it was just taking those first 2 years to get a better understanding of what I like and also what I didn't like. So it's kind of like, taking that time to trying to figure out, it's like, okay, I'm under this major and what can I do with it moving forward? So I took a list of those things and then brought that to my junior year. And then around that time, I was in the middle of a lot of my coursework for my major and my double minor. So essentially, as far as action steps, I made a list of everything. I made a list of potential careers. And I was like, okay, under this major, this is what I can do as a potential career. And then from there, I decided to look up different profiles of people. So it's like I wanted to learn a little bit more about their timeline and how I would potentially fit. And then I made the extra step of trying to meet people within my network to also get that human-to-human experience and understand what they went through as well. So it's like understanding the digital aspect of like what's on a website, but also that human-to-human aspect as well.
That's great. Kellyanne, how about you?
So I came into Loyola really loving psychology. I was like, I'm going to be a psychologist. I want to help people. I find it so fascinating. I was big into true crime with all the crazy psycho people before it became all on podcasts. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. As I got more into it, like my love for it didn't die. But towards the end of freshman year, I was like, you know what? I probably need to just know my options a little bit more and like really drill into what's going on. And so I also really had enjoyed through, I think one of my intro classes, marketing. So I was like, all right, you know what, let's do that as a minor and go through it. I continued with psych all 4 years, and I think that really taught me how to organize my thoughts, how to write, how to relate to people, but also marketing started to become more and more of an interest of mine. And so when it came time sophomore year to start exploring internships, I went the sports marketing route instead of psychology. And I think my biggest learning with all of that, no matter what, was just like network. Like there has not been, whether it was an on-campus job here to my first job, to internships, to first job out of college, to continuous now, like I have not gotten a job or an opportunity if it wasn't for somebody that I knew. And it's not even like nepotism or something along those lines. Just every opportunity you're going to go for, there's going to be other people who want that same opportunity. And the more you build relationships, the more you are not just a resume on a paper. You are an actual person with different skills that the hiring manager really finds valuable. And that is beyond just, that has been the biggest help with anything professionally or just learning as a person, because even as I mentioned before, like I have to work with directly with people who think different, who work different than I do. And just really understanding through talking and just communication back and forth, like all what goes through that process really then allows me to do my job better, which then down the road I have a little nugget of information that helps me somewhere else, or I can then help somebody. So that was really like the biggest thing with my professional development at all these stages, is just like network, talk to people. Even if you don't think they're going to directly help you in some way, just keep up relationships.
Now, for either of you, is there anything looking back that you might have done differently if you could go again?
Not put so much pressure on myself.
Okay. Can you say more about that?
I think it's just like, the end game at the end of college is like get a job, like you're going out into the real world. And I think I could have taken some more time. I mean, everything worked out fine. I love my career. But I think looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I put so much pressure on myself as a freshman or even like a sophomore, just like figure it out. And just don't put that much pressure on yourself. I work hard, but just, do what you're supposed to do, but don't just over stress over it, because that won't help anything.
I think for me, I try not to kind of like think about things as like going back, just be like, would I do something differently? I think I realized the older I got, the more it was like a marathon and not a sprint. So I don't think I would change anything. I think for me, it's just like, understanding that everything has its right place and time. And maybe at that time it wasn't for me, but then later in life, things will change the more I learn.
Well, yeah, and both of you, there's that thread of it's the journey, not the destination, that really comes up in both of those answers. That's great. Thank you. So Emma, our history major. So the humanities in general provide our students with core knowledge and skills that translate to a lot of different kinds of professional success. And I'm wondering if you could tell us about a humanities class or professor that provided a lesson that has stuck with you in your career.
Yeah, I think history in particular has really taught me just how important it is to be objective and to approach things with as little bias as possible. And that's something that's translated to science. When you are running an experiment or testing a hypothesis, it's important to think about what preconceived ideas you might have that could influence your results. But in science, oftentimes you can just rerun an experiment or, but in history, sometimes there's only one source, and so in that way, it's quite precious, and I think it taught me really to value the facts that are before me, and it's something that I've taken into science. And then the second thing I think is certainly the writing skills. I think people sometimes have an idea from movies that scientists spend all day in like a lab, but we spend a lot of time writing papers or applying for grants, and you can have the best experiment or finding out there, but if you can't communicate and disseminate those findings, you might not have found it in the first place.
So with those themes of the being objective and that translation to science, and then the writing skills that you can use in so many different paths, can you think of a specific example from your career where you've actually put one of those into action, like just to give us a little context?
Sure. So I'm in a PhD program right now, and you have to write a dissertation. So that's a couple hundred pages of writing. I did my senior year at Loyola, I did a history thesis. And so I think that experience, is a totally different subject matter, but realizing it sort of piece by piece, paragraph by paragraph, revision by revision, constructive feedback from professors, it all comes together in the end. So I think having that experience has really helped.
It's the journey, not the destination
exactly.
again. That's great. Jackie, do you have any thoughts on, as you think about your Loyola experience, a particular lesson that you've seen an example of, wow, this has been really valuable in my career so far?
Is this one of my direct questions?
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. I think, I just was going to phrase it differently. That's why it caught me off guard. I think for me, one of the things that I took away, of course, from this experience, especially undergrad, right, about going to liberal arts school and studying multiple things and expanding your horizons is the ability, I think, to some of the themes you've heard here as well, just like working with others. You never know, like I think about when I join a new team or when I've joined a new job, like you're never gonna know everything. But I think something that I have tried to push myself, and I'm proud, like I think has stuck for me, is my ability to like collaborate with others. I think when you're put in different environments, especially like in these classes, you think about all the like class projects that you work on. Like I'm pretty sure in most interviews, until I had like a good like work experience, I talked about being on a team project and the different roles you play in teams. But I think where for me that really like came to fruition was in my last role, having the opportunity to really, a lot of autonomy in that role, and through that, identify an opportunity for collaboration that was lacking in something bigger than my role. And so my previous role, I was working for an organization called the Emerging Technology Centers, the ETC, which is the City of Baltimore's Technology Innovation Center. So working with startups, kind of creating community, different programs, things like that. And I was really frustrated with the lack of collaboration between organizations that were really similar. And so I worked pretty hard to kind of get all the stakeholders in one room to create this thing called the Entrepreneur Support Organization, like coalition. So everyone who kind of was in this space to come together and work together, and at least like start having these conversations. And I think this is something I've thought a lot about even more recently as you continue to meet people that are so different from yourself, is just this idea of like dialogue and just talking and communicating and hearing and really hearing the other person and listening. And these sound like basic things, but they often get lost, especially in the workplace. And I think through the Entrepreneur Support Organization Coalition, like at least we could come together and really align on what was important to us. And why I'm so proud of this and it's important to me is like it's still going on today. And I left that organization over a year and a half ago. So to me, it's like, okay, great. Like there was value in that. And there's still, I think there's always going to be a value in collaboration, especially outside of your normal groups. And I think that's something that's definitely like rang through like experiences here and kind of being in these different, whether it's a club or team project, you get to interact with different people across the board.
Yeah. So there's themes, starting with the examples we've heard so far in this, the objective piece and like using evidence, right? Like here's what we see, so let's use that to make decisions. The writing skills, you could expand to communication skills, and then the whole side of just working with people, interacting with them, knowing how to collaborate. Any other skill sets that you all would highlight for those who haven't jumped in yet on, here's a skill that I've been able to take forward from my education into my career?
What I was actually thinking about as I was listening to the other respondents was I did work for Loyola's Technology Services office, and I had an office manager who was wonderful. Her name was Becky Kelly. I don't think she's still here, but at the time she gave me a lot of autonomy. I was able to collaborate, and that kind of made me think about that, was I collaborated with the local school so that way we could have students who were at a summer camp. They came here, we would work on them with computer skills so that way they can learn how to do paint shop and Photoshop. They can learn how to actually use the internet to find resources for school. So that was something, she gave me the leeway to do it, and I did it. It was successful. It went on for a while even after I left too. So that really gave me confidence and made me really think more about leadership and that potential, because I never thought about being a leader. It was something that I figured I would stay away from. I'd just be a therapist and sit in my office and talk to one person, and that'd be the end of it. But that really opened my eyes, and since then I've been on diversity and inclusion councils. I was actually the chair for that, and the education and training committee for another position, which I held for both of them simultaneously for 18 months. So being able to do that and manage a caseload, these are things that you gain from Loyola because you get that multifaceted education, all these different experiences, and within teams and clubs, being able to rise up and be a leader and be a peer support. Those are things you definitely want to take advantage of because it is going to take you far, I promise you.
Yeah, so that's really, it's the leadership piece. There's also an aspect of innovation there, right? You were given that opportunity to create something new that wasn't there before. So I want to stick with you because it's interesting that the examples that you gave, from working in tech services to different kinds of clubs, these are all things like outside of the classroom. So there's pressure, and I'll see if we see any nodding heads out there, but there can be some career-related pressure on college students today that forces some to think that they need to pursue majors that are directly connected to specific careers. I'm seeing some nodding. Okay, so this resonates. So what do you say to that, though, from your own experience in terms of what you studied and now what you do? Like, what do you say to that pressure?
As one of the other panelists said, you have to let that pressure go. You cannot put so much pressure on yourself when it comes to that. I felt at the time that I was really fortunate because I came to Loyola. I already had in my mind, I want to do psychology. I'm going to study psychology. That's the end of it. And I came here and I did that. But along the way, I had a guidance counselor who made the suggestion, why don't you also incorporate Spanish since you love it and you want a minor in it? Why not make that a major instead of just a minor? So just having these conversations and talking to different people, your mind's going to be opened up to different routes. Even within psychology, there's so much that you can do with it. And I've worked with geriatrics, I've worked with infants, I've worked with young adults, homeless, people who are incarcerated, a wide array of people. So it helped give me the basis to work with all these people, collaboration and being adaptable. But that's the biggest thing. Like, you can't put that pressure because you don't know how you're going to feel, what experiences are going to open up for you, and you don't want to close yourself off to those doors by being focused on, I have to just only focus on this one particular route. And even within, as I said, within certain routes and certain majors, there's a wide breadth of what you can do within that. So when you do your internships, if it's something I love children, I always want to work with children, work with adults maybe, try something different, see what experiences you glean from that, because if you stay focused on what you want, it's great to have that drive and that vision, but you don't want to just be tunnel vision either. So that would be my suggestion, is to open yourself up to other experiences too.
I like that idea too of like, when I'm really interested in this, intentionally seeking out some things that are kind of the opposite of that, just to see how they feel.
And certainly for me, things have changed. Like I said, I had 10 years within one realm of how I wanted to work with people. There was movement within that, but now I'm looking at housing because I definitely see the need and the prevalence of homelessness here in Baltimore. So I figured being able to get my real estate degree, being able to work on getting funding for multifamily housing to be able to help people who are low income have a place, like it still fits in with psychology, because being able to meet social determinants of health and things of that nature. But now I'm just looking at it in a different way. So without that openness, I probably wouldn't have seen that as a possibility.
That's great, thank you. Other thoughts on this pressure, the career-related pressure for college and college majors?
Oh, you can go first.
You're so polite.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
Strong truths, well lived. As I mentioned before, I was psyched from the moment I got in here, kept it as my major, and had a marketing minor. Probably my sophomore year, it became very evident, very clear that I was going to stick with marketing for a career. And my parents used to just be like, switch over full, like just switch to marketing, switch to business. And I always fought back. And I think the things I learned with having a major so different from business and marketing was I learned to read things so critically, and I learned to understand research and statistics and all these things that are so applicable in real life, like how to look at a study or an article and just be rightfully critical of what you're reading and not taking it for fact. And it's just such a real life skill that I think helps me in so much of my everyday, besides just my career, like just having like the liberal arts of education, like not pinholing yourself into something, because you'll learn. I know that, like, I think also I took a lot of history courses. I almost accidentally had a minor just because I liked history. And like, I think that like all those papers and all the different presentations, like those things were just like life skills that I just used in so many other facets of my career, being able to put together presentations, being able to organize my thoughts. Like these are not traits that you can just read in a book as you're going through. It's something you have to learn through courses and studying and just collaborating with others in different courses. So like we were talking about, like, don't pinhole yourself into something just because.
I think just to bounce off everything, I kind of have a weird analogy. I was just talking to someone about this recently, because they were just like, I'm majoring in this, and I feel like no one's going to take me seriously if I just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I was like, did you put yourself in a pinhole? And, after further conversation, they said yes. So the analogy I have is just to try not to be such a cookie cutter, just don't be that store cookie cutter that you could just buy every single day. Try to like mold into other things within it as well, because you will honestly see a lot of alignment. So global studies and a double minor in Chinese and Asian studies. Okay, and then I went to an MBA the year after. The first question people ask me, they're like, okay, global studies, political science, sociology, and now you're going into business. Like, what are you going to do with that? Should we take you seriously? And there's always so many different ways to find that alignment, so that transferable skill set. So, take some things that you learn from some of those classes and apply it to the next thing, then apply it to the next thing, and then you'll see that you kind of made your own mold, essentially, but just under different aspects. So it's like you're not putting yourself in that pinhole at all. So at the end of the day, I would just say, own it. You know, you only have one life to live, so you got to do what you have to do. Yes.
Be your own cookie.
Yes.
Very nice. All right, Jackie, let's go to you. I want to talk a little bit about internships, experiential learning during college. What did you do? What's your advice for today's students?
Yeah. I did a bunch of those. Everything from, really getting into the lifestyle. Like, I'm from Long Island, so I commuted to the city for a summer. I worked in this woman's kitchen. And if it was basic, I thought it was going to be PR, but it was like more fulfillment center. And
In her kitchen?
in her kitchen. It was weird. Again, this is from like, okay, things I was doing outside of, so back to the major thing. I came in strong as a business major. I wanted to do that, but I got interested in marketing and PR, and so I joined PRSSA, and I got really involved there. And things that were kind of like fulfilling that. And so this was through that. I also had the opportunity to intern with the Baltimore Symphony in development, so in the arts and fundraising and like something very different. Spoiler alert, I come from the arts, and that was really interesting to me. So I think what I learned from kind of all of this was now I'm remembering another one through an alumni, I was a sales intern. So I think for me, as you can hear, I did a bunch of different things, and I think similar to the themes you've heard, I followed things that I thought were going to be interesting and were available, and a little bit of like YOLO, like why not? What's the worst that could happen? And I think what the spin on that has to be is like whatever the experience is, what is really looking back and reflecting on like what you got out of it. So for me, I knew I didn't want to go into sales, or I did not want to be part of a fulfillment center out of a woman's kitchen, but it was interesting to see how like a one woman operation worked, and how you have to do everything. I feel like that was like a good entryway into, I later helped entrepreneurs, right? So it's like a weird circle. It's weird at the time, you don't necessarily think how things are going to play out for you. Recently, like the past 2 weeks, I've been doing a lot of thinking about like, okay, even in this past year and a half in my role, like what have I gotten out of this? Like what are those skills, and what are those skills I'm interested in getting? I think it's tough in your role because I think the exposure to like working, 9 to 5 every day isn't something maybe you've had the opportunity to do unless you took a semester off and like really got into it, or have, or coming up one of these summers, you'll get that kind of like intensity of work. But really just thinking about like what skills you're interested in kind of acquiring, and they might not always come from a traditional place. I manage entry-level employees, and so I wanted the opportunity to coach and develop people that maybe had a little bit more experience in different career objectives, and so I started mentoring with Venture for America, which is a great program. If you guys haven't heard about that, I'm sure someone in this room can explain, or I can explain it to you after you. But I think there are unique ways to get different opportunities. Even in the business school, there was a service learning component. I remember being a Sister Joan at like, it's right on, I think, Greenmount, the school there that we partner with. It's escaping my name. The name is escaping my
Govind
brain.
Elementary?
No, it's a Catholic school. Sister Joan, she was the math teacher. Some Mary something. It's like right there. I can see it. I pass it all the time.
We're going to figure this out before the end of the night.
What is the school? Look on the map. And I remember it was through a social entrepreneurship course, and I was like, what? I'm math. I'm not a math person. Like we were talking about majors. Like I was never going to be an accounting major. Like not my jam. Love Excel. Here for it. And I think, again, like what I got out of that is, again, like the spin on how being in that environment and that first world experience can help later, and like especially social entrepreneurship. Yeah, I was interested in that. And so this school and being like a math assistant was really interesting. So I think, long story short, take the opportunities you can get, do things that you think are interesting, and push yourself as soon as you can. I think this is something I've like really thought about in the past, like just the past year, even more so. And I think we do a good job of that here at Loyola, about reflection and discernment and thinking about why, but pushing myself now to think about, like, what did I get out of this, and what did I wish I got out of this, that maybe another opportunity that's out there that I'm interested in, that I can get there.
It sounds a lot like, I mean, so many different experiences you had, and some of which you just realized, wow, this is totally not for me, but any experience, when reflected upon, is guaranteed to have value. And so therefore, the more experience you have and the more time you take to reflect on them, the more informed you're going to be. All right, so let's go back to Emma. I want to hear a little bit about your thoughts on how rewarding careers allow us to express our passions through our work. So what gets you excited about your own work today, and give us a sense of why it might be a great fit for some students in our room.
Yeah, sure. So public health is an amazing profession. I think, again, I'll go with an example here. So just within the past 100 years, public health has eradicated smallpox. The infant mortality rate in this country has declined by more than 90%. In the 1960s, more than half American men smoked. That figure now for men and women is down to less than 20%. HIV and AIDS are no longer death sentences. And these are things that are remarkable to look back on, but we also can't be complacent on them. And there are a lot of challenges now, and it's a real amazing opportunity to get to go into work every day, and with the conviction and be surrounded by other people who also believe that a stranger's life is just as valuable as your own. And so it's motivational, and it keeps you up at night, but the challenges that we face, things like, hundreds of millions of people are going to be displaced by climate change the next coming decades. Antibiotic resistance is a thing. There's misinformation campaigns being spread about vaccines. And it just seems, for me anyway, like you only get one life to live. Like, let's fight it, let's live it, so that everybody has the right and the opportunity to live a full life, happy and healthy. So definitely consider public health if you haven't.
That was pretty compelling. Nice job. Valerie, do you have a pitch from your perspective?
I'm following that up. Okay.
Sorry.
It's fine. I would say social work was my passion. Psychology was my passion. I kind of got sidelined into social work for a while, just because of the similarities and, again, having more doors open. But just being able to relate to people, to understand where they're coming from better, and to be able to have deeper conversations with them, help them come to realizations for themselves that they weren't aware of, and how they can make changes in their lives that are going to be positive for them. And just overall improving people's quality of life. That's a lot of what I got from psychology throughout my career, and those are definitely aspects of it that I want to bring no matter what career I'm part of. So for me, like I said, psychology, I had one thing in mind, that I was just going to be a therapist, and life took me in a whole different path, and I've gotten to do so much with it. So I always recommend, even if you don't decide that you want to be a therapist, psychology, just even having a few classes in it is something that's really going to open your mind to understanding our society better, understanding if you take organizational psychology, once you get into the work world, you'll be able to understand and see different components of how behavior is within the organization, how to help people meet goals, team building, just so much. Like, I absolutely love it. But if you're into languages, I love being able to be bilingual and to speak with people in Spanish. One thing that helped me, even though I took Spanish all throughout elementary school and high school and college, and still speak it now, is at one point I did read a quote from Nelson Mandela about, if you speak to a person or speak to a man in a language he understands, the words go to his head. But if you speak to him, I'm sorry, I think I got that backwards. If you speak to him in words that he understands, it goes to his mind. But if you speak to him in the words that basically or his native language just connects with his heart. So being able to touch people's heart with how I communicate with them is something that's very important to me, and has always been a vein with no matter what I'm doing. And like I said, my new career pursuit is real estate / business brokerage, which is another opportunity that someone presented to me within this. So you always get opportunities presented. You just got to decide what you're going to do with them and what you want to pursue. So within that, obviously the opportunity to help people with housing and to alleviate that big need within this community is important for me, so other people may see that as an important need for themselves if they choose to go into that path. So.
You stepped up to that challenge very well. Well done.
Appreciate
and both of you, there was a theme there of help and of service. And what I find interesting is, without jumping in on that answer itself, Jackie, you've already touched on the mission of Lyft and helping people have access to the best transportation. Kellyanne, you've talked about helping people understand this new technology and how they could best take advantage of it. Tyler, you talked about helping to mitigate risk in these very complex transactions where people could lose a lot of money. I mean, there's a thread through all of this of you all have seen and expressed ways to help other people or help communities through your work that I think is pretty notable. So with that, I'm going to get to my last question before we open it up to some conversation with our audience. And I'd like to just ask each of you to spend about a minute on this. A lot of our students here, you're thinking about what's next for me, what's next in the coming years. So I wanted to give you a chance to share a little bit about what do you see coming next for you in your own career and life journey.
I had plans before, and it's like, if you asked me at 18, I would tell you my 5-year plan already. But after graduating, I decided to not have a plan and just to see where life takes me and see what opens up, see what's closing, see what I can try to find my way into. So I'm just letting life do what it has to do, and then we will go from there.
My immediate plan is to finish writing my dissertation. But after that, I really I work with the National Institutes of Health for my dissertation, and I really enjoy working with them, and I'm very much interested in a career in federal service in some way. I also find it really exciting to be in academia, so potentially maybe one day a professor as well, but we'll see where life takes me.
So my current position was kind of a test. I was been running as a one-woman show for the last year in this position, and I've really put forth an argument in the last few weeks that I need to be able to build out at least a small team to help me and to go further, that we've had showing that we've had success doing X, Y, Z. So if there's more than one of me, we could make that much more. And so my new goal going forward is I would like to be in a position of leadership, because I've had really amazing bosses and really not so great bosses, and I think both are huge just chance to learn, because now from the bosses that I love, they've developed me, they've helped me, and I want to be that for someone. And then what I've learned from bosses that I haven't really agreed with or haven't really worked well with is what I can do differently when I'm in that position. If I don't communicate with that person in the same way, how I as a boss can tweak my understanding to help them. And so with all these different learnings, I think that's my overall next big career goal, is I want to help manage a team.
Well, for my next career goal, definitely getting started with real estate and seeing where things go with that. Basically, for the beginning of the tax season, I started in a position where I'm helping as a consultant bilingually at a location to help people. It's like a staffing agency, but then they also assist people with taxes, and they have an array of businesses. It's like a franchise, and they also sell and broker businesses. So that opportunity came up to not only work on the real estate, but to study to be a business broker. So I'm anticipating doing that training and just seeing where things go with that career path. I also have a small business, which I'm hoping to have opened up. It's going to be a store where people can come in and play different games, like a hobby shop. So I've had my LLC for about a year, but getting funding for the storefront's been challenging. So my hope is that those challenges in the next 5 years will be alleviated, and I'll have my storefront here in downtown Baltimore somewhere, so you guys can come visit too.
So I've been thinking about this one recently. There's been some opportunities. I've interviewed. I haven't gotten those opportunities. I think for me, really think about like where am I trying to go with all of this? Is kind of back where I was in my last gig, which was helping entrepreneurs and helping startups. But I want to be able to have my own opinion and have enough experience to help in a really meaningful, impactful way when it comes to operations. Yeah. I love solving problems. I love messy problems. I love figuring out how like things should work. And so that's kind of what I'm focused on right now, is trying to gain those experiences so I can come back to a place like Baltimore. Hint, I do want to live in another city and all of this, and help entrepreneurs here is kind of my end goal.
Great. Some very exciting plans ahead for everybody. So let's open it up for audience Q&A. And I would ask you, if you're going to, if you have a question, just give us your name, class year, and if you have a major, if you're undeclared, just let us know. And then question for particular panelists or just in general. Who's going to kick us off?
It could be something fun.
I'm just taking the mic. I'm going to start giving it to people.
Catherine could hand the mic around.
There we go.
Hi, I'm a senior global studies major. I'm currently at a loss with all the different areas I could explore in global studies. I was wondering if you specifically, as a global studies major, had different options of what you were interested in.
So basically, as in kind of like, you're at one point trying to figure out go this way or go the other way. So what I did, since I was at the same position, so I was at a standstill, I was like, do I continue with graduate studies with global studies, or do I do something completely different that is just like out of this world? I'm like, I would never have thought that at all. So what I did, I sat down in my dorm one day and I made a giant list. So I wrote down continuing one career in global studies, then continuing another career as an MBA. And then I wrote down the pros and cons of each one. I wrote what I liked about each one. And then from there, I just kind of had to sit down and I was like, really, really think about it, like reflect on my past coursework and just be like, okay, if I decided to go for a totally different degree, would I still be able to transfer every single thing from global studies into that? And that's what I found one day when I sat down and went through everything again. I wrote a lot of notes, so pages on pages on pages, and had so many different conversations and then so many different meetings. And what I realized is that worked out even better just because I was able to add a global aspect. So when I was doing my MBA, everyone was like, okay, you're a global studies major. What do you know about this? And I was like, okay, well, as a global studies major, this is what I learned, and I can apply this argument to this specific case study. So I would honestly just do that and just reflect on it a little bit more, but then try to challenge yourself to see where you can apply things, and you'll actually find a lot of alignment between the two. I don't know which field you're going into as like the second, but it is very easy to transfer just because, the more as the years come, the more global business is becoming a thing, so everything's becoming more globalized. So you can honestly find it a lot easier to just segue into any field.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
How did you find yourself at Morgan Stanley with a global studies major?
Yes, so that was one of the things I had to translate coming in, because I was a global studies major, decided to go for my MBA, and that was the first question. They were like, okay, you're a global studies major, and then you decided to get your MBA, how does that work? So it's being able to tell a story. So being personable is like talk about those real experiences that you had and talk about your coursework and how it got you to that point, but also just showing that extra effort as well, just to be like, hey, I know I'm a global studies major, but I also know about business, and I can talk about this category, and that category. So for me, I was there one day and I was like, I'm just gonna apply and see what happens. And through the interview prep process, I was like, I'm just gonna tell a story about myself, and ended up getting in, so it worked. But it's just being confident in who you are and just like owning what you did and then trying to push to that one goal.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Got time for one more. Anybody on this side of the room? All right. This table is really leading us through the conversation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm a senior, and I'm also a global studies major. I just wanted to ask all of you, what were your biggest worries leading up to graduation? For me, I guess, for people like about to graduate soon, it's more of like, what's next? Where do I stay in Baltimore? Do I go back home? There's like just so many different opportunities. So what were going through your heads as you guys were about to graduate?
I'm going to give you a break, Tyler. Okay. So, yes, I decided at my graduation dinner to tell my family that I had gotten a job and I wasn't coming home ever again. So it was a bold move. But I understand exactly what you're talking about. I had like 2 weeks left. I was like, I gotta get a job. That's the whole point of this whole thing. And I think I took a role and it was awful. It was the worst job. But it was fun because I worked with my best friend, and I stayed here, and it helped me later. Again, it like helped me in ways I didn't realize, and it kept me here, and it led me to that next opportunity. So I don't regret it. But I definitely what I wish I told myself is I took 2 weeks to I stuffed my stuff. Where does everyone live on the east side? I'm not this old, but I can't remember anything. Homeland. Everyone lived in Homeland. I was like, okay, great. The lease is there. I'm going to stuff my stuff here. I'm going to come back and get it. And I just wish I had given myself time to just explore other opportunities. And so I think if you're worried, ask yourself what you're worried about for real. Is it that you don't have a job right now, or you're not sure what job you want, and really think about just breaking it down versus getting caught up in the momentum of it's almost done and I gotta go, this rapid fire pace. So I would just give yourself some time, and again, I've like it was said, I've gotten most of the roles that I've had here through a Loyola connection, and so talk to your friends, talk to who they might know, and really think about what you're really worried about and how to give yourself time to address that problem.
Okay, are we going down the line or? Yeah. I guess we could. My situation was when I graduated or was getting ready to graduate, I actually had a job lined up. So I was happy. I was going to be working at Shepherd Pratt. So, with the realm of psychology, that was perfect. Okay. Be working on a behavioral unit for children, similar to what I did for the Kennedy Krieger Institute for a while too, while I was in school. But what happened was my sister and I took a trip to Costa Rica. Right before we went, I had my interview. Everything was great. They're like, okay, we'll sign the papers when you come back. I come back, oh, we filled the role, no job. So I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? But I had already met the person who was going to be my husband at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm staying in Baltimore. That wasn't an easy conversation with my family either. They were very surprised and unhappy, but they had supported me too. They understood it was my right to live my life. So they didn't give me a whole lot of guff about it, except for my older brother. But I just stayed here for a while. It only took me a couple weeks, and I got a job at IKEA, just so I could do something bilingual and could at least keep that going while I was looking for something I really wanted to do. And then about 6 months after I started at IKEA, they cut my hours in half. So I was like, okay, I can't work here anymore. But then a job opened up that I had applied for and didn't get it the first time around on the interview, but hey, we still need somebody. Do you mind if you're still looking for a job? I sure am. So that was like my first foray into being able to be in case management and support planning. So things just worked out, and just from there, like every opportunity just kind of came at the right time for me. If it wasn't when I thought it was going to be, it still was the right time. So that's just my advice, is that I had things lined up and things fell apart. So even if you plan, no matter how well you plan for things, you still may find that you're going to have to rework those plans from A to Z. So, and if you're going to do anything, get your signature before you go on vacation, because you don't want that experience.
I would say if there's something you want to do, fight for it. Like, just fight. Like, I knew by my senior year I wanted to work in sports, which is a very competitive industry to break into at entry level. And so I fought to, like, tooth and nail for a job. I took 2 times a week, I took a train down to DC to sell lottery tickets at a Wizards and Caps games, just so I could meet people in those organizations. And I ended up, luckily, meeting my future bosses there, but even like they weren't hiring, I hounded them, got coffee with them. Like, I just I knew what I wanted, and I just needed to be that first person in line that when an opportunity did come up, they were like, oh, hey, what about that annoying girl that's been buzzing around for 7 months? But like, everyone is gonna want that job after graduation. Everyone's gonna want that opportunity that you want. Just be that person that wants it more. Like, do that extra email of like, just grab coffee. Like, please, can I grab coffee, and pick your mind about what this industry is like. Just fight whatever you want, whether it's traveling after college or like moving to a brand new city. Just fight and make it happen. Believe in yourself and just push yourself forward.
So when I was graduated, I was lucky enough to have had an opportunity heading out. So I went on a Fulbright scholarship, which is a State Department research grant. But I remember leaving that being quite stressed about, okay, what is my first job gonna be? And just putting a lot of pressure on myself to find like the best first job, and being worried that if I didn't have like this great launching pad, like somehow the rest of my career wouldn't work out. And I think looking back, like that was such a silly thing to worry about. Like, regardless, I think in your first job you're gonna grow and you're gonna learn something, and you'll take it to your next job. And it's not like I don't know. It's there's just try not to put too much pressure on yourself with your first job. There will be more jobs, and what your first job isn't going to dictate what you do for the rest of your life either.
And that was my point as well. Literally the same exact thing. I remember applying for my first job after grad school. It was absolutely insane. So it took me like about 2 months to find an actual job. And, the thought itself, it's really uncomfortable, but what I found that helped me in the long run, even with the role I'm in right now, is that, you have to push through that discomfort, and the more you push through that discomfort, the more you'll learn about yourself at the end of the day, and then the more grit that you'll have. So it's like, whenever you get that no and stuff, you're gonna ask why, instead of just sitting and be like, okay, I gotta know. Next one. It's like you're always going to want to understand a little bit more, and then you'll take those reasons and move it to the next thing. Even my first job, I thought it was going to be, my career for the rest of my life, but no, almost 2 years later, it was not. But what I did learn was that, I learned, the basics, email marketing, any type of communication skill, and I took that with me to the next job. So it's kind of like understanding that your first job isn't your forever job. You're going to have multiple opportunities in life. Sometimes maybe the second or the third one may be, your forever job, but as long as you're open to the idea of change and you embrace it, you'll be okay.
Awesome advice. Well, Jackie, Valerie, Kellyanne, Emma, Tyler, thank you all very much. Can we recognize our panel?